All right. What's up, guys? This is Jordan Dominique with the Shining Force channel here, and I am coming with a little bit of a different type of a video, but I think that it's a very important thing for me to make a video on because, well, the subject that I'm going to address feeds into a lot of the bigger issues that I talk about, and it is really the subject of this is what compels me to make videos like these that I do, talking about these issues, or basically it's a lot of the reason why I talk about these things that people question is like, why do you talk about? This is why. It's because we need to learn how to have appropriate conversations with people that we disagree with, agree with, either way, and make sure and ensure that these conversations that we have stay productive, that they don't get too wrapped up in emotion or disagreeing or have a competitive nature to them as to where you're trying to beat someone. That is not what conversations are for. Therefore, gaining better understanding of another side, expressing your own opinions so that you can, if you feel like there's a, a point of education, then, doing these kind of appropriate things. That's why we converse. And communication is a skill. Even though we're becoming more interconnected as a society through social media, the internet, things like that, it's almost like we're losing the ability to communicate with one another because of the homogenous nature of information that we are presented with and the way that we enter into echo chambers of our own thoughts and opinions mirrored to us through media based off of algorithms and everything like that. I encourage everybody to break out of the echo chambers that we've been put into in order to become more well-rounded individuals. And the way that I'm going to be talking about that is by going through a conversation that I had with someone today here with of course, I was a participant in the conversation, and I'm going to be trying to talk with objectivity about the conversation, but I am the human being who is partaking in it. So there's going to be an implicit bias that should already be assumed here. So please don't make it seem like I'm trying to paint myself as right in this conversation, or I'm trying to paint the other person as wrong in this conversation. But there will be a mix of me giving my own thoughts and opinions, like dipping back down into my personal bias, and I'll be addressing that as it comes along. But then speaking about the generalities of, general, like rules and regulations of the way that you should uphold yourself when you're having a conversation so that it can be as productive as possible. Am I expecting these things to always be followed? No, that's just wishful thinking to 100% compliance when it comes to how people can communicate and have them be fruitful and productive. But with that being said, I think that this is something that should be spoken about more because we're losing the ability to have nuanced conversations. And if we lose that ability, then we won't be able to progress as a society because, when you're just completely recycling the same ideas over and over again, there will come a stagnation with that. But it comes with us having to be able to agree and disagree with people in an appropriate manner. And there are levels to it. You gauge who are lost causes, who are people, like you have to be able to gauge who is even worth the time of investing and having a productive conversation with. And I like to think of myself as somebody who can always present myself as a person that you can have these kind of conversations with. And with that being said, I'm going to have to point out a little bit of complications that come when we're talking about text-based conversations, because it's kind of hard to get the general capacity of emotion that is being expressed from one end to another without some of the other communication methods that we use, like body language, tone, all that kind of stuff. But without further ado, to actually get into the topic, yesterday, because it only lasts for 24 hours, I made a post. I made two posts specifically, and I said, Since when do poor people basically, when do poor people ever get to make the rules about anything? And why would somebody trust poor people to make rules in general? And then I went further to say, well, the same thing goes with politics. Why would you trust poor people to write the politics if these are rules and legislation that guide our everyday life? And what I meant by that, just to give it a very general, a story is so many words and everything, and then you post it and you got to go on for 24 hours. But what I was trying to say there was a lot of poor, the way that we trust politicians, I say, because, so many people don't trust them. But the way that we're supposed to trust politicians is that they're competent and savvy enough to lead us to success, to a better future than our past is in general. And if people in their own personal lives are in financial dire straits, then that should raise an alarm in a person when we're talking about them being in a capacity of leadership. You should ask yourself very general questions about why they are in the position that they are in, how they have contributed to their own financial situation, and if it really if they really qualify to, make responsible decisions for themselves, let alone for any mass of people. That's all that I meant there. I didn't mean poor people don't deserve things or anything like that. I have never been truly wealthy. I can say that for sure. But I've definitely been on the sides of the less than fortunate or impoverished. So to even imply that I have something against that, against poor people, being that I came from that, would mean, at the best, you could say that I have a disdain for the situation and a desire to see nobody in that position and to see everybody come out of that position if feasible. That would be the closest thing that you could say to me having an attitude against poor people. I never have an attitude against people. But basically, from that story, I had a person respond to me today, and this is where I'm going to start getting into verbatims about what was discussed. I'm not going to say who the person was. I actually like the person a lot. I think that they have some very good points that they make whenever they talk. Even in this conversation, they were very good points that were made. They were just unfortunately misguided and totally misinterpreting what I was saying. So yeah, but they responded by saying that the reason why they would allow people to allow poor people to make rules or politics, be politicians essentially, is because poor people haven't taken advantage of anybody to get where they are in the grand scheme of things. Now, that was their exact response. Automatically, wherein what I'm talking about has to do with taking advantage of people. If we're just talking about politics, I understand that politics can involve taking advantage of people, but that was just a strange first entry level response to what I was saying, because it really doesn't have much to do with it. And then also assuming poor people is a very blanket term that does not describe any race, creed, religion. It's a very loose demographic. So to say that because poor people haven't taken advantage of anybody doesn't even make sense. First off, how would you know? How can you account and speak for poor people and say that they haven't taken advantage of anybody? Now, if you're saying that corporations and rich people exploit workers and working conditions and things like that, and culture of people in order to take money, for profiteering, I will agree with you, but I won't then say that poor people haven't taken advantage of anybody. You just can't say that. And the quantity that corporations do exploit and take advantage of people in general is comparable to the intimate nature of ways that poor people can take advantage of each other and keeping themselves in the same financial situations that they are. But I'm not trying to say poor people are untrustworthy, take advantage. I'm not saying it's not about trying to paint anybody as negative, politicians or poor people. My whole point in that was, I think that was a moot point, because a blanket statement of saying that poor people don't take advantage of people. Have you met every poor person? Like, that's so strange. And then you're automatically implying that all politicians, or, you know what I'm saying, people who are involved in politics are automatically taking advantage of people. I will agree with you that that's true a lot of the time, but it's just not 100%. And you'd have to go on a case-by-case basis to even address that. So for that to be the entry-level thing, kind of set the tone for what I knew what I was getting into. Let me go ahead and give you my actual response to that message. I said, that's a general assumption. You couldn't say that for sure about any specific person of any financial circumstance unless you knew them. I wouldn't necessarily assume that a billionaire has taken advantage of more people than a person on the streets. There can be exploitation and manipulation in both cases. I personally think that the quantity of these exploitations is comparable to the intimacy of situations in which poor people take advantage of one another. I mean, exactly what I just said to you. In response to that, the person who I was talking to replied by saying, I'm not talking on an individual basis, though. It's more about the fact that money equals power, and therefore those with less money are left more vulnerable, and the wealthy bank on that dynamic. I agree with a lot of that, but I don't believe, so I actually agree with everything there in that message, because money does equal power in a lot of sense, and those with less money are left more vulnerable. That's true. The next message was, and since they profit off of others' vulnerability, it benefits them to make rules and laws that keep poor people poor. I kind of agree with that too. I don't fully disagree with that. I do believe that there are laws that are put in place in order to protect the wealth of the wealthy, but I don't think that that's as malicious as a thing as it's being painted right here. Because if you're a wealthy person, of course you would want laws and legislature to protect what you've built for yourself. That's any person at any level, once again. But then that went back around and say, so I do think poor people should be able to make the rules. So just in that message, says, since rich people make laws that keep them rich, and in this person's opinion, keep poor people poor, that's why poor people should be able to make rules. Once again, you haven't even said why poor people are trustworthy enough or responsible enough or have the mentality to make rules. You're saying these people are doing a bad job, so give it to these people without any credentials or any reason or purpose. And that's my problem, in all honesty. And my response to that was, oh, I totally agree with a lot of those things. It's funny how before I even read my message, reiterating it's pretty much the spot on the exact same response, because I just know how I work in those instances. But I said, it's common sense. I totally agree with a lot of those things. But would you trust poor people to be politicians that govern the rules and laws affecting your daily life? And then the response was, as a poor person, yes. Yes, I would. Poor people are not immoral. Once again, I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. Basically, that person is trying to say that the current people who are involved in politics are immoral. I can't confirm nor deny that. I don't know. Probably a lot of them are. Probably a lot of them are. But that, once again, doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about right now. Because saying poor people are not immoral is totally, what does that mean? That's not there's no weight, there's no substance to that statement. Poor people are not immoral. Have you met them all? No, you haven't. One thing you can say about politicians is that politicians are judged by being a politician, and you can see the politics that they have participated in, and then you make a decision on whether or not they are moral or immoral if you want to, if you decide that based off of your own compass, your own moral compass. But to say that poor people are not immoral, who are these people that you are talking about? Who are these imaginary poor? We're talking about poor people like it's a party, like it's some political party or something like that. You can't just make the blanket sweeping statement that poor people are not immoral, because that makes no sense. It just doesn't. So I said, But I didn't even address any of that stuff that I just said because I'm trying to get to the point. Like, as I can see, like, none of the stuff that we're talking about has been on topic to why people are politicians yet. It's all about nice and mean. Who are the meanies and who are the nicers? Whatever. I said, but do you believe they are pragmatic enough and progressive enough to push a nation forward? I just think there are more elements to it than being taken advantage of. You know? Like, this is not, like, politics isn't, like, a lot of what we experience now is, but it's because the people who care, the people who are trying to take advantage of people are the only people who care enough to put forth the work to get themselves to those positions to do that. The people who aren't going to take advantage of people aren't working to get themselves into positions where you could potentially do that. Or they're not working as hard as the people who want to take advantage of people. That's the problem. It's not about poor or rich or any of that stuff. It's people. If you see an opportunity, scammers or anything like that, and you exploit that opportunity, you will continue to do that, and people will continue to suffer until there's a workaround for it. But when we're talking about politics, we're not just going to do away with politicians. So then some more competent, trustworthy people have to go in and fulfill those roles, and they have to give a damn. But so many people who give a damn about society and stuff like that are like, I wouldn't touch politics with a 10-foot pole. And that's why the only people who are willing to get their dirty, grubby hands on politics are these immoral people that you claim. That's me giving you a biscuit. Like, that's me acknowledging your point. Not in this context, because it has nothing to do with what I was talking about. But what I'm saying, but the whole point of that is to say that even if they are immoral, they still care enough to get to that position, and we have to. Is this new, or has it become a cliche to say politicians don't care about such and such and so and so? Wow, and we still haven't done anything about that? What'd you call it? Kanye West went on TV 20 years ago and told us that President Bush doesn't care about black people, and we still haven't done anything about politics in that realm yet? Come on now, like what? So you allow that then, but you don't have the money to fight that. So what are you, just laying down and taking it? Are you just laying down and taking it and crying and slowly weeping while you're sodomized by these people? Because that's what we're describing here when you talk about the powerlessness that you have against the people who are totally taking advantage of you. Now that we found this position that we're in, what are we going to do about it? All right, let me go back, but I have to continue on. She said, the person, I'm sorry, doesn't matter, genderless, forget that. Now if we're talking the stereotypical poor person who steals from Walmart, which I'm not talking about theft, I'm not talking about poor people stealing, I haven't talked about poor people being on drugs, I'm just talking about poor people being poor. But anyways, now if we're talking about stereotypical poor person who steals from Walmart to feed their family, I still say yes, because I feel they would put rules in place that could benefit society as a whole and not the few individuals that benefit from current structures. So you think that people who steal from Walmart, and I've stolen from Walmart. When I was homeless, I stole from Walmart. Like, I will admit that. I think that a lot of people from my generation have stolen at least one item from Walmart. So that has nothing to do with being poor, in my opinion. I stole from Walmart when I wasn't poor. So these are so not related to what I'm talking about. But poor people who steal, so you're saying that people who steal from Walmart specifically, you would still say yes because you think that they know what people need or what they need. And you would be grossly misinformed to believe that all people need the same thing. Like, it's very simple to tell yourself that, but it's not true when you try and put that into reality. Because the levels of development, the things, the practices and things that people have in their families and their culture and all that stuff like that, like, there's something you just wouldn't know. It's like the Pareto distribution. You just don't know how much beneficial things are going on for the people who are truly focused and working on those things. And to compare that to a person who is directionless and hasn't had much guidance or a pathway or the willpower or any of those things, it's just, they're going to need vastly different things. So it's weird to say that a person who steals from Walmart is just you're going to trust them enough to know what's good for everybody blanketly. Okay. Then they sent another message that says that poor people push and try to progress every day for themselves, not for a society of people. It takes a different mentality. First off. Also, why are poor people unsuccessful? Because we're not talking about poor people who made it. We're talking about poor people who are still poor. They have not succeeded yet. And I'll give credence right then to say that now I'm talking about a blanket of a cloud statement of people who aren't really there, and that's fine. Like, that was fine. Like, this was never I never had a specific targeted audience of people who I was like, these are the poor people who can't be president. It was always talking about this theoretical, this not stereotypical, but you know what I mean, the archetypal, it's just the statistically average poor person. Simple. They're trying to progress every day. See the many food libraries that other underprivileged people have set up. Do we believe that the underprivileged people have set those food libraries up? In a lot of cases, they have. But you still have to you have to do something in order to make a food library. You have to organize and establish and either take on donations from people or take on funding from the government. That takes certain competence, care, willpower, structure, organization skills that the average poor person does not have. Otherwise, we'd have more food libraries than we would homeless shelters, and we just don't have that. Is my point. You see what I'm getting at here? Once again, you're talking about a very specific and rare type of person. Now, if we were talking about a person who came from poverty and like, you are not still a poor person if you set up a food library, just so you know. You at least like, I don't have a home, I'm a streetwalker, but I own this food library. You see how we're not talking about that? Like, you're already playing into a different type of person. The person who sets up a food library would be an ideal candidate to go into politics if they care to do so. Isn't it crazy how that works? How somebody who can organize and structure and delegate and provide and prove that they have a leadership goal where they can build infrastructure and then develop and distribute necessities to a community. Yeah, that's actually exactly what you need a politician to do, but that's still not what a poor person does, just so we're clear here. Anyways, feeding the homeless, etc. But since they lack the funds and approval, because they don't have the ability to pull the same strings as wealthy people do, their efforts are usually not only stopped, but completely destroyed by law enforcement because it interferes with somebody else making money off of people suffering. What are you talking about? That was that dwindled down to something oddly specific. And do we actually have case and example of that happening on a wide scale? Or are we going to cherry pick little stories that make it seem like that's happening? Because I just haven't heard much story. Like, we don't have mass stories about food banks just being shut down by law enforcement. I just haven't heard that. I don't know it. Please let me know if I'm wrong. Greed is extremely damaging. I agree with that. That's a very general term that has nothing to do with poor people. Once again, poor people can be greedy. Like, just because you're poor doesn't mean you're not greedy. Crazy. But it's an entire system that is based off of perpetually taking advantage. That's a misconception about capitalism. Capitalism is more so about providing goods and services to your communities and understanding that it's going to take different roles to fulfill all of the needs of a society. That's what capitalism is. It's gotten morphed into things. People are not playing the game in the best way. Dude, that's a whole other conversation. It still has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. Poor people are poor not because they have some better, greater idea than what capitalism is. It's because they're failing at capitalism. And that's something that, like, it's neither here nor there. But once again, just because somebody isn't successful in capitalism doesn't mean that you should trust them to do something else. Like, that doesn't make sense. But it's okay. It's the attitude of, because I can. That's true. A lot of rich people do a lot of things because they can, but I don't think that is everything, because society would be crumbling in a different fashion if people were if goods and services weren't the primary engine behind capitalism. If it really was greed, then we'd live in a far different society than what we do, I feel like. Completely lacking any moral scope to their actions because they've never gained empathy from experiencing what the people who they're pushing around have experienced. So completely lacking moral scope. I don't know how we judge a business person's moral scope. I don't know how we judge Jeff Bezos' moral scope, because we didn't judge his moral scope when he was the only person sitting in that office. You know that one picture where he's got the thing that's spray painted that says Amazon and he's in there. Did somebody judge his moral scope then? Or did they judge his moral scope when he elevated to whatever $1 trillion and so on and so forth? And of course, you're going to be under greater scrutiny as you attain higher levels of success and stuff like that. And more will be exposed or whatever and stuff. But morality doesn't have anything to do with the goods and services that his business offers. Amazon is one of the biggest distributors of most goods and services that I know of in America. And that's something that just, if that was separated from what Amazon was, it wouldn't be as successful. It's not about them. They don't make the money from the manipulation. Like, there are bad work practices and things like that that go into their warehouses. I'm not disagreeing with that, but that's not what made him his bread and butter. It's the goods and services. It always has been. It always will be. Anyways, they said that I don't think they're in their minds they're being spiteful or hateful or evil. I actually breezed over that message, but it's like, if you don't think that, then how could you say that they're being immoral? And how could you, like, you really believe that these people are so detached from reality, being humans, that they just don't know what they're doing? And that may be true in a lot of senses, but the general fashion in which this was being explained, like it's some total ignorance of the world around them, I think it's more so of them understanding and realizing that a lot of people they won't be able to help, and more so zoning in and focusing in with blinders on what they can help. Also having life purpose, mission, goals. Everybody doesn't come with this general mentality of saving the world. And more so the people who don't look at it with this grandiose nature are the more successful because they're being more realistic about it. I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion on that. I don't think that that's fact, but I mean, God, like, this is just so far away from what my original post is. You see how crazy this conversation got? And then he said, they just simply lack any sort of awareness, which is dangerous for society. Bro, believing that these people are in that high of a bubble, I see why you feel that way, because media wants us to believe that, but it's just, dude, that's not, like, I mean, we are dealing with a society who a good majority of people literally think that they're like reptile people or something like that. So that is fair. But I responded to all of that by saying, how come these people can't put, these people as in poor people, can't put these systems into effect with their own ingenuity and competence? Talking about the food banks and everything that got shut down. Like, if they have all of these plans for the betterment of society, how come they aren't more successful personally? And even if they do have these ideas, if putting them into effect is such a problem to them because of the current powers that be, what is going to happen if they become politicians and now have to deal with the bullies of the globe? What I mean by that is that when you have an obstacle, like if you're going to go climb a mountain, are you going to be like, but that mountain's so tall, and then the mountain just gets shorter and then you just walk right up it? Like, you take 3 steps and you're at the top of Mount Everest? Or do you say, wow, that mountain's so tall, better get started, and you put your little axe in there and you start climbing? You take steps. Like, that's what you do, right? I say all of that to say, when you're faced with adversity, it's about how you overcome adversity. That's how you earn your stripes on this planet in general. I don't think that there should be simulated adversity or forced adversity on people, because there's already enough adversity in the world. And overcoming that is how people get to certain points in life of leadership, success, and things like that. So when I talk about this, I'm saying, if these people have all these ideas and all it, because, dude, if everybody was able to try their ideas and stuff like that, we'd see so much more. The fact of the matter is, everybody has an idea, a scheme of success, get rich quick, dreams, goals, everything. But most people don't do the work to get to where they need to be. Those who do enjoy the fruition. There is an element of luck that is taken into it, but I don't think it's mostly about the luck. I think a lot of hard work, competence, preparation, planning, determination goes into it. And then there's a small bit of luck and situations that play into it. But to focus on that is almost taking away opportunity from yourself. Like, when the world is against you, if you turn against yourself, then you're just giving up. When you say that your enemy is too strong, you're just not supposed to do that. I mean, we all know that. You keep fighting. Like, that's what you do. And you fight smart. And that's how you win. But yeah. So that, I mean, when I'm talking about the bullies of the globe, I'm talking about America is fighting itself, and we don't know that just outside this border, there are wolves literally licking their chops, waiting for America to fall over so they can come and eat our delicious offal meat. They want our innards. They want us. They want to devour us. And people like the military and politicians are protecting us from much more malevolent and immoral entities if you really want to be serious about it. So yeah. Anyways, her response to me talking about that was saying, go anywhere without money and let me know. This is where it kind of gets into like, this person is like assuming that I haven't experienced these things or something, because it's like, or maybe just talking without any consideration of maybe this person has experienced these things and talking to me like I don't know what I'm talking about without any inkling of having a clue whether I do or not, which I just don't recommend to anybody. Never assume that somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, because I don't know, like that's just strange to me. That's super weird. But yeah, go anywhere without money and let me go. Buy some food with your own sheer will. Let me know how it goes, babe. A bunch of laughing emojis, because at this point you could tell somebody's getting a little frustrated with what I've been saying. I said, but that's my point. If a person is poor, they can't focus on leadership because they have to focus on survival. So the real only choice we have in people who can lead us are people who have the time to do such things. Because what I was saying is, if you're focused on survival and building yourself, you can't be the president. You just can't. Like, you're focused on your day-to-day tasks, how you're going to eat that day. You also can't run a nation. It just doesn't work. Simple and plain. I don't know. Anyway. The response was, because of the system set in place to stop them. Don't care. Like, at this point, I'm going to start getting into like, because we're going to start reiterating points. Don't care. Yep. World is not nice. It's hungry. It's dark. There are animals outside that would kill you if we didn't have these walls around us and stuff like that when we sleep. So that's reality. Somebody built this house. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't inherit homes or anything, but they're shelter that protect us from the outside world. And if we didn't have them, it would be not so nice. Doesn't mean that we're naturally born with rights to these homes, because I don't know how to build a house. So if it was up to me to build my own house, I'd be shit out of luck and I'd probably be wolf food right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm speaking in generalities, but you know what I'm saying, right? Anyways, says, and to keep them at a level of barely surviving, I don't believe that. I don't believe that anybody's goal is to keep somebody at a level of barely surviving. I do believe that there is incentives to keep certain people impoverished and working class, but I do also believe that there's a lot of resource and opportunities for us to get out of that personally if we want to enough. If we want to enough. I'm not saying rich, I'm not saying millionaires, but you can there are ways to make a living right now. Go get a freaking CDL license and go drive trucks or learn to code. Like, seriously. But yeah. And everybody has the same amount of time, but nobody has been given resources. Even though there are more than enough to go around. There are more than enough resources. Resources are things that are cultivated and refined. Resource meaning that somebody put time and effort into those resources. You want free coal? You want free energy? Go. How are you going to explain to the person who mined the coal that we burned to get energy that we need it for free? So you're going to go do this for free. What is free? Like, literally, what is free? Come on now. Like, what are you talking about? Even though there are more than enough to go around. Of what? Food? Yes. Like, I think that world hunger is a simulated issue, and I could go on that for I see you. It's like almost like I'm on this person's team because they're saying such things that are like sound good, that it's like, duh, of course we don't want people to be without food and water and shelter and stuff, but it's more complicated than that. It's just simple, but yeah. See my comment about greed, right? So I say, hold up. So when you talk about the systems that are set in place to stop them, those systems aren't going to stop. Those people will have to overcome the current system in order to gain power. I won't go into that because obviously I've just gone on for a long time. If you don't get what I'm saying by now, you probably won't get it. And I said, when you fight bad guys, you can't count on them having a change of heart and all of a sudden becoming good. That only happens in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Literally. That person replied, bet, and called me a negative Nancy at this point. And it's just like, dude, okay. Imagine that you imagine that you're in high school, right? And a bully steals your lunch money every single day. And one day you just like, bro, you're so mean to me. Like, it's so rude, bro. I don't have any way to get food, bro. Oh my God. Do you think that bully is one day just going to be like, dang, you're right, man. Here's all the money I ever took from you back, and bro, I'm so wrong. I'm so sorry and stuff like that. In their own personal growth and development, I mean, hopefully one day they might realize that. But is it to be expected? Have we seen that story play out too much in real life? No. No, that's not how it works at any capacity. Bullies don't have changes of hearts. It literally only happens in Dr. Seuss books that their hearts grow 16 times that day. And let me just give back everything I stole. It's just not reality. That's not how we're going to deal with this. That's not how you deal with somebody who does something to you. Okay? Like, I don't know any way to further break that down. But anyways, I said, this is life or death. Because you're just talking about negative. Like, at that point, I thought, I'm like, are you being playful? Because I'm trying to have an actual conversation. I'm like, this is life or death. And I said, I mean, there are people who want to enslave you just because you're a woman. Talking about those big baddies, you know, the bullies that are on a global scale. They want to enslave you just because you're a woman. That's their morality, though. That is moral to them. So I'm not even going to have that conversation about that kind of stuff. But such and such. Yes, there are places that want to enslave you just because you're a woman. The United States defends us from people like that. And she said, so you do understand that the 1% are killing us. And I said, we have to take a lot of stuff that we don't like with that. And there are improvements to be made. But I don't think that our current leadership system is as malevolent as you think, especially not by comparison. And the response was, no, they just enslave everybody in a way that is much more covert. Listen, comparing literal slavery to the corporate plantation is, I don't go for that. I'm black. We can talk about what's going on in Lebanon right now. We can talk about what's going on in China right now with the enslavement of the Uyghurs and these things like that. You're not going to compare that to what's going on in America. It's two different things. And when white women try and say something like that to me, it rubs me the wrong way. Especially like, you don't know, go read a book, look at all the stuff that's going on in the world. This is slavery right here. No, it's not. It's not the same thing, and it's really wrong for you to try and compare those two things. But it's neither here nor there. I said, but there are levels to oppression, and the economic game that is played in America isn't comparable to the barbarism going on in some parts of the world today. We have to keep the whole scope in mind. The response was, most of the world does not have the problems that we do. I said, what do you mean? This is where it starts getting into, this person doesn't want to explain anything. And it starts getting into like, please do some research on how many other countries feel sorry for the U.S. Who cares what countries feel sorry for the U.S.? Like, what does that mean? Anyways, as we have been conditioned to feel sorry for third world countries, who actually usually thrive very well. They just haven't been colonized and conditioned to believe in the luxury that we have. There are third world countries who cry for Americans because so many of us grew up hungry. That's not true. That's just not true. But anyways, it says we are severely lacking in community and empathy in many parts of the country. That is true. Also, please note that the U.S. is bigger than most countries. That is true, but I don't know what it has to do with anything. And I said, simply just to get to one luxury or commodity that we face that in like, okay, really? You want to sit here and talk about other parts of the world and stuff, and you want to put in the scope these third world, because I'm not talking about third world countries. I'm talking about first world countries that still don't do the shit that we're talking about. Like, still don't do the things that we're doing or live the way that we do. It's not just third world countries. I wasn't talking about that at all. Anyways, I said, do you really want to live in a world without air conditioning? Just to get straight to a point of, let's talk about something real. And are you willing to give that up? Is that really what you're willing to do? It says, all comes down to the human experience. This is them. It all comes down to the human experience. Many people try to avoid being human, feeling human, connecting due to the trauma that our own public servants have put us through. See, war. Right, because war is something that we do not to protect ourselves, but we do it just to harm. We can get into a conversation about why people go into war and the financial purposes and the aims and the goals and alternative reasons that people engage in conflicts, but majorly it's for the defense of a nation. We'll just leave that there. Air conditioning really is not that luxurious compared to people living in literal palaces, while there are homeless folks freezing to death on the streets because the 2 homeless shelters in the entire city are full. So that sounds more like Dubai than it sounds like the United States of America. But, you know, it is happening here in the United States. I don't know about palaces, but most people in the United States have air conditioning, just so we know. Also, air conditioning can be done by many ways. HVAC with Freon is just one way. That's true, but majority of places on the planet don't have air conditioning, as we'll see here in a little bit. Anyways, I said, but do these countries that you're mentioning have air conditioning in the average household? Just to once again tie it just to one commodity so we can actually compare one commodity of apples to apples instead of talking about who are the meanies and who are the niceties. And like, God, I hate when we talk about like untangible things. Keep it real. Air conditioning. Do you like it? Do you want to do without it? No? That's America. All right, cool. And they responded to that saying, yep, they're probably, says, I'm probably thinking of huts right now. Why? Now, this is how far we've degenerated in the conversation. Now, originally, I just made a conversation about poor people in America. And now I'm thinking about huts. Apparently, I'm so fucking closed-minded. I'm just a little frustrated at this point. But it's like, I'm so closed-minded about the world that I think that everybody outside of America lives in grass huts. This is when it really goes to show that you don't know who you're talking to and that you haven't been paying attention to anything I've ever said ever about anything. I have been such a pro-black advocate, pro-people advocate that you putting that on me just because you don't like hearing the words and talking about poor people, that you assume that I'm talking about grass hut, grass skirt, like that is ignorant. And this is a Caucasian person saying this to me, bro. Like, it's weird. That's weird for you to come with that kind of energy. So I share a simple list of statistics of countries that have air conditioning. Guess what? The top is Japan. 91% of households have air conditioning. We were in the high 80s. There was another one that was 63%, I believe. I'm not going to go through the list because it just takes too much to go through that. You can look it up, just countries that have air conditioning. But then it dropped significantly after 63% to 16% for 2 more countries, and then you won't see anything above 10% after that. All of them are 9%, 6%, 8%, blah, 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 5%, 4%. It's the rest of the world. It was like 5 countries that have AC, and the rest of the world has below that amount. Now, I don't know where the UK was in that, and I'm not sure. Like, I'm not even sure how accurate of a list that it was that I pulled up. It was from Statista or something like that. That's not the point. Even if that was making assumptions and was pretty inaccurate, there were so many countries that were left off that list that are beneath even the 5% range that it doesn't, like, majority of the world doesn't have air conditioning. The majority of the world doesn't have a tenth of the luxuries or even the commodities that we take as day-to-day almost rights here in America. So let's just get that squared away, please. Super important. Super important. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Okay, I am. Cool. All right. And I said, I shared the list and I said, most of the countries on this list don't have grass huts, but they also don't have air conditioning on average, because I'm showing you that that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about regular poor people. And then the person says, and yet they've survived. Notice we've degenerated this far from talking about politics, making rules and governance, to surviving. You see how it's degenerated into like, oh, now we're talking about people surviving. If you survive, guess what? Slugs survive. Slugs survive, but they can't do politics. So what are we talking about here? Anyways, and then I said, I'm more personally worried about more than just survival. And then the person responds with, what does air conditioning have to do with luxury? And are you aware that many Americans, even if they have access to AC, do not use it due to electricity costs? I said, I'm worried about developing the future and comfortability. And I said, I absolutely am aware, but the fact that they have the option is a beautiful thing. And then this person, I'm going to paraphrase this part because this person just goes into talking about how they work for housing and how people in the middle class had to not use their air conditioners in order to save money. And I can't, like, I'm not going to start, I'll be kind of going through this, but it's like, at this point, we're so far detached from what I was originally talking about. Now we're talking about people not being able to afford electric. Like, we're not talking about poor people anymore. It's just here. Oh, at one point I'm talking about people in third world countries, but I'm not talking about people with grass huts, but you are. But now I'm talking about people in middle America, in middle income housing, and how they're poor because they can't keep their AC on at times, or they have to give up other things and cut the lights off. It's like cherry picking. When I've literally stayed on the straight and narrow path talking about simply how poor people have elements in their lives that they have to focus on that would definitely eliminate them from being in the realm of talking about running for political roles. And all of this is kind of proving it, because if you can't keep the lights on and the AC on in the house, how are you going to run the country? And saying that that's rich people's fault, yep. Now, how are you going to run the country? You see what I'm saying? You see how it doesn't make sense? Anyways. So, upper middle people talk about air conditioning for a long time, and the point does not get across. It just descends into utter freaking chaos, like literally. So after all of this, I essentially, like them, they say, you know, that they have to choose between keeping the lights on and turn the AC on. And I say, you know, lights generate heat. So technically, if you want the AC, just turn the lights off. You know, anyway, just being, you know, kind of snarky, but whatever. It boils down to them saying, so you're saying fuck poor people? Where in any of this conversation that I've read pretty much verbatim the entire time have I said fuck poor people? I have to appeal to anybody with common sense or just anybody paying attention to this video. I don't know if you have to rewind the whole video and watch it again. If you can name any point where I said fuck poor people, or even gave an inkling that that's a notion that I have in my heart of hearts, please, I'll give you $1,000, so you won't have to be poor anymore. Because if you can prove that to me, you've earned that money. Because it's just not, it's weird. But anyways, instead of acknowledging that crazy ass person thing that they said, I just said everybody deserves the opportunity to work towards the quality of life they deserve. The next thing that I get, very ableist. Some people do not have the ability to work as hard as the next, even if they have desire. I have to stop at that message right there and go back to what I just said. Everybody deserves the opportunity to work towards the life of quality that the quality of life that they deserve. If you're disabled, then you don't have the opportunity to work towards the quality of life that you deserve. So that rules them out in my mind. The fact that this person automatically went to, what about disabled people? You see how they have these points, these talking points loaded to cherry pick from? Once again, like, how many people in the world are disabled? A good enough faction that we want to take account for them, and there should be measures and things for them. But is that who I'm generally talking about? No. So how do I come off as ableist when I say that everybody deserves the opportunity to work? Everyone deserves the opportunity. Does everyone have the opportunity? No, for many different reasons. Some people don't have legs, but they deserve the opportunity. If they don't have that, then we should figure out other measures for them to have a good quality of life. Yeah, I think that should go without saying, without me automatically being labeled as an ableist without saying it. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, I go on to say, they go on to finish off. Some people don't have that ability, even if they have desire, even if they have the desire. That's true. It actually drives people to suicide. Yeah, that's true. That they can't do what they want because of their flesh prison. That's true. And I said everybody should have the opportunity. Disabled people don't have the opportunity. So that has nothing to do with what I was describing. Once again, it does. They matter in this hypothetical topic because they're the people you're talking about. Oh, so now I'm talking about disabled people when I'm talking about poor people, not disabled people. Poor people is what I said since the beginning. Who shouldn't make rules. Oh, so now it's disabled people shouldn't make rules. Well, if you really want to go into it, I'll save that topic for another one, because we're going to have to be pragmatic about that too. And if you depends on what your disablement is. I don't think that people with, Down syndrome that is highly like affecting them at a high level. Do I think they should be the president? No, I don't. No, I don't. And there's no one who should ever tell them that they should, even if they want to. Even if they want to, it should be something that, I mean, I wouldn't be like, you can't be that, obviously, because you don't want to crush your kids' dreams, but we're going to have to nicely pretend and be like, oh, yeah, you're president. But they're not. They will never be president. It won't ever happen. It shouldn't ever happen. I'm talking about high level, like truly debilitating. You know what I mean? Because emotionally, it's like you don't get a participation trophy for being the leader of the free world. If that's what you want to call the president. That's my point. But anyways, I said, no, it doesn't, because you asked me about poor people and not disabled people. And while some poor or people are poor because they are disabled, I wouldn't assume that most are. Would you care to know how I feel about disabled people? Or would you like to assume it on my behalf? Because at this point, you're just saying things about, I don't care about disabled people and fuck poor people and stuff, to which they respond, goodbye. Because at this point, you totally lost any ability to actually talk about what I've been taught, like the point of my post. It's just, you're mean because you don't appreciate poor people. Like, it's weird how it degenerated in that. So I said, I apologize that my post upset you, but your unwillingness to listen to anybody else's opinion but your own or have a nuanced discussion is problematic because, like, I don't know. Hopefully people respond to this video and let me know. Am I crazy? Am I crazy for the way that I was coming at this? Please let me know. Like, please. I have to know. But yes, I said it's problematic. The person said, I've listened. I just disagree and feel you have a very small scope of awareness. No, you haven't. You didn't listen and you didn't disagree because you've been putting words in my mouth about fuck poor people and disabled people and all this weird stuff. Anyways, nobody has to agree with you, and your post didn't offend me. You don't have to agree with me, and my post did offend you because of the things that you've been saying, but that's neither here nor there. It made me feel sad for me. Oh, my post talking about poor people making rules made you feel sad for me? Well, that means that you read a little too deeply into it and you didn't actually fully understand it. You read the book, but you didn't get the message. That's okay. That's okay. I just hope one day disabled and underprivileged people matter in your hypothetical discussion. So once again, this is saying that anybody who's not making the rules or a politician doesn't matter. I don't make rules. I'm not a politician. You don't make rules. You're not a politician, but we both matter. So what are you talking about? I said they shouldn't be allowed to make rules and shouldn't be politicians. Doesn't mean that only politicians matter. You see how crazy weird this is getting? All of these narratives that are being built about things that I didn't say anything remotely close to them. It's weird. Again, peace and love to me. Because saying peace and love is automatically it's performative. I'm not going to be mocking. I'm just going to say saying peace and love at the end of a bunch of ignorant bullshit is just performative, and it's not peace and love, just so you know. But anyways, I said all of these opinions that you were describing come from assumptions that you are making about me instead of the actual topic. And that is the problem. I'm not going to go through some long spiel about myself knowing what it's like to be poor because I have a background of all of this. I have a very mixed background. I've been a lot of places. Many people who know me say, oh, wow, Jordan, you've lived like 3 or 4 lives because of the things that I've done. And I'm 27 right now. I probably got about 6 more lives left in me. Anyways, I said, I will just let you assume that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm not going to, you can't have an argument with a person who's put this much in your own mouth, this many words in your mouth. You just can't. And I would never recommend that you do. Continue on, like, get your points across, but don't expect that you're ever going to change somebody's mind who talks the way that this person was talking. It just won't happen, and you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Anyways, this person said, I didn't say anything about you during our conversation. Really? All of this was about how I didn't know, didn't do any research, I don't know what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. I study this stuff every day of my life, but it's okay. I didn't say anything until I said you were leaving disabled people out of it, and I feel sad for you. That was mainly what I'm talking about, but you were also saying things about me before that, and that's, neither here nor there. It says, it seems that you're taking this discussion personally. That's because you've been talking about me personally and how ignorant I am, how I don't know what I'm talking about, and this, that, and the other. So yeah, this has been a personal conversation where you've been talking about me personal more than the actual subject, which is a problem. It says, but yes, of course, you know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's sarcastic or not. I'm not here to prove it. I don't have a doctorate. I'm not a politician. I don't have a degree in politics. I just watch it every day. I pay very close attention every day of my life. Every day. I don't think that I'm an expert. No, but I pay attention to this more than I think the average person does. Because every time I try to talk to somebody about this stuff, like, man, Jordan, I don't give about that stuff, or you care about this stuff too much. So clearly I care about it more than average, which is fine. It's my lane. It's good. I own it. That's why I'm making these videos now. I own it. I know the person that I am. Anyways, I said that everybody deserves to work towards the quality of life they deserve, and you took that as fuck poor people and disabled people. That's weird. That's weird. And they go on to talk about how they're not poor and they provided a good life for their kids, which I've never questioned that. It's super weird. Super weird. You know, it goes into that. And I said all of this personal information is so unnecessary that we could stick to the topic. Like, what the hell? And the response was, but I'll never think that poor people are less capable of making rules to benefit society just because they haven't been able to succeed in the elite's eyes. We finally got back to what we were originally talking about. Finally. What you call it? So I said to that, I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I'm responding to like stuff that's up there because of the just total derailment of the conversation. But I said, like, instead of telling me about how I should do more research and how I don't know what I'm talking about, presenting the actual facts and statistics of people successfully doing the things that you're talking about, you know? Yeah, it was just continuation. But it said, then the response was, it seems that you're afraid of emotion. Let's see here. And I said that this has nothing to do with emotion. That person responded by saying that they said that because I asked a question that they didn't feel like explaining, and they aren't responsible for the knowledge that I want to have. That's very true, but you also did respond to a message or to my post, and I started a conversation with you talking about it, and then you want to go and talk about how it's not your responsibility. That's fine, but that's also why you're not a politician, because if it's not your responsibility, why are you pretending like you care about any of this? Do your research. Anyways, I said that putting emotion into these kind of situations, politics, if politics made their politics, or if politicians made their politics based off of emotion, no. We'd be in a bad place. And I said, putting the emotions into these kind of things is problematic, and nobody who does such a thing should be allowed to make the rules for the average person, because that's, dude, when you're the king, you can't think with emotion like that. It's just going to cause more harm than good. This says emotion is part of the human experience. I know. And I said, I already know, which is why I made the statement. The next message was, if you want to escape the human experience, that is problematic. Not what I'm saying. I said, I want to elevate the human condition and experience, not escape it. The response, well, you can't without emotion. Womp womp. They literally wrote womp womp. You got me. I said there is a time and a place to have emotion, and politics isn't one of them. I hope that we agree on that, man. Of course you have to have a heart, but I'm not going to get into that. That could be a whole other topic. Then it gets to the point where it's like the next message that from the person is, okay, I have things to do besides argue with an elitist on the internet. So now I'm an elitist, which is crazy. And it's like super weird. But yes, it's called compassion. And I said, so now I'm an elitist. And if you have better things to do, just go do the things. Like, I'm not trying to hold you up or anything like that. I responded to your message, and every subsequent message afterward, I've just responded to, but that's okay. Say, oh, so now I'm an elitist. And he says, you want to elevate the human experience, but ... whatever. And I said, I haven't said that I'm better than anybody, and I haven't even said that I'm not poor, because I haven't even talked about my own class or social or status at all. I haven't talked about it at all. I haven't talked about myself at all, because it doesn't have to do with me. And I said, that's why I'm talking about when I say that you're just making assumption, or that's what I'm talking about when I say that you're just making assumptions. Just call me an elitist randomly out of nowhere. Like, that's super weird. And I said, if you have other things to do, just go do the other things. And then they said, you want to try to do that in the same way that people have ruined the human experience. And it gets to a point where it's just like, I can't, I'm kind of going to cut off and paraphrase the rest of it, because it's like, it was just back and forth about like, them saying I'm elitist, don't care about stuff. Me saying, what are you talking about? Like, you don't even know me or any of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know, as soon as people started dying from hunger, I didn't, like, a lot of these messages I didn't read because it was like, basically got to a point where we were like, oh, you know, when you're in a message thread and like they message one time and you start replying to that one, then another one comes through and you got to finish that one. So you get like off kilter and you guys are on like a different timeline in your message response. That's what it kind of got to. But it's basically, I'm just saying that everything that she was saying was subjective, as was a lot of stuff that I was. But if you wanted to present some better position, you still have to come with, even in matters of subjectivity, you should still present your best case as to why you subjectively think the way you do. If you intend to, you know, offer any information that's going to enlighten somebody into changing the way that they are. And even if her intention wasn't to change my mentality, if you were fully discussing it, you should still have the want to present your best case. Like, why come here if you were just going to have a half-ass conversation about which, like, you have to do the work now. Like, people think that they, like, you just get in, you point your finger in the air and you say, nope. And then you're like, wow, you're right. No, it's like, nope. And this is why it's nope. And this is how we can progress to get it, yep. And then it's like, wow, I'm with that. And I know I'm kind of paraphrasing that, but like, you get the gist of it. You have to have something more than just an objection. If you just have a complaint without any solution, then you're just a complainer, basically. I talk about being misquoted. It's super weird and everything. And then I end off the conversation by sharing a 26-minute video where I talk about the complexities of homelessness and ways to improve on this problem in the United States, starting with programs and assistance, since I'm so ableist and elitist. And that was them basically saying that they weren't going to watch the video because they don't want to contribute to my YouTube views and stuff like that. As if I make $1 off of these YouTube videos. I do this because I'm weird and this is some kind of passion. I don't know. But that basically gets us through the message thread. And I made this video because I kind of want to have a further discussion about, first off, does anybody think that I tackled it wrong? I mean, I pretty much read to you guys verbatim my responses and what I was responding to, of course, with my added commentary. But now I do want you guys to offer your thoughts and opinions on the conversation. If there were points that I could have handled better, if this person was right, you know, I think that if they were articulated further, there were a lot of excellent points that were being made on the opposite side, and with a little bit more fleshed out composition, I wouldn't have disagreed with most of the things that they were bringing up. But it was the essence of them saying all of this as reasons why poor people should be allowed to make rules that just doesn't make sense to me. If it makes sense to you, hey, let me know. I've spent entirely too long in this video. I need to go enjoy the rest of my evening because I just got off work, and man, oh man. If you're poor, I encourage you to hurry up and not get poor, or get not poor. And yeah, like and subscribe the video if you do. If you like it, subscribe to the channel. I put out content like this, to be quite honest with you, at my own leisure and frequency. And once I determine more of a plan as to how I want to put this out and exactly what kind of content I want to put out, it'll come more in line. It's getting a little bit better. I definitely know when I feel the calling in my heart to make one of these videos, but I can go on about that forever. Thank you for checking this video out. If you stayed to the end, you get yourself a cookie, and it better not be oatmeal raisin, because you don't love yourself if it's oatmeal raisin. Get yourself a nice snickerdoodle, Milano. Get a Pepperidge Farm Milano. That's enjoy it. You've earned it. Have a great rest of your evening.